Hi, I'm Praneeth Malik. I'm going to talk about ceramic printing on glass. I've been in the industry now since 2003, so I have roughly 15 years of experience in glass. And I have been fortunate enough to work with ceramic printing for this period. And I have seen various methods of printing across the time span. So I'll quickly go through what are the main ways of printing on glass. So I'll get right down to it. So normally when you print on glass, you can either do ceramic printing, or you can do lacquering, or we call enameling, or you can also do UV printing. But in my presentation, I'm going to cover ceramic printing, which pertains to printing with ceramic frit on glass, and that's the topic of my presentation. Ceramic printing is widely used in the glass industry, and in order to print well, we must understand ceramic inks. We must understand how they are deposited on the glass surface. There are various methods to do so, and the end use of the glass will determine which methods are more suitable and which process needs to be followed, which inks need to be used. There are limitations and advantages to ceramic frit printing, as is there with any other material. So, we will dwell on that as well. Ceramic printing is essentially inorganic ceramic frit, which is deposited on the glass surface through various application methods. Glass frit is essentially very small granules of glass itself, as is seen in the image. It's crushed down pieces of glass, which is then added with pigment, which is an inorganic pigment which gives the color. Different metals will have different colors, and that will be mixed with the glass frit. And then a medium will be added, which is a solvent essentially, which will carry the glass frit and the pigment onto the glass surface. So, essentially ceramic ink is glass frit, pigment and medium put together. So, all of these three put together give you ceramic ink. So, ceramic ink is different than any other ink that's out there, because it will embed itself on the glass. Unlike other inks, which will have just a chemical attachment to the glass, this will fuse onto the surface of the glass. We can print through three methods: screen printing, which is better for doing patterns, designs; roller coating or roller printing, which is essentially to do solids or single colors in more volumes and better uniformity; and lately digital printing, which is inkjet printing on glass, which really increases what you can do with printing on glass. There are other methods like spraying and rain coating, which are normally used for lacquering, but are not suitable for ceramic frit printing because the depositions are too thick and do not suit the ceramic frit. So, each of the processes has advantages and limitations, and we'll go through the processes and understand them better. The ceramic printing is different than other inks and other printing methods, essentially because of the ceramic frit. So, the ceramic ink has a glass frit, which is transferred onto the glass with something which is called as a medium, or which is a solvent, which carries the glass frit and the pigment on the surface of the glass. The frit particles soften when fired at a high temperature and fuse onto the surface of the glass and form a continuous layer bonded chemically and mechanically to the substrate. Now, the hardness of this particular material makes it usable for various applications which other inks cannot be used for. So, once the ink is fired, the medium completely burns out. It's just there to deposit the glass frit onto the glass surface, and it makes the ink very durable and fit for many extreme applications. So, what are the advantages of ceramic frit printing? It's essentially like a bone china. It never loses color, it never fades, it fits for external use. It is UV resistant, so it doesn't fade. If you have some other lacquers, let us say on external surfaces, they will fade and lose color. There are very few inks out there which do not fade with time. but ceramic frit printing, since it's a part of glass, is very resistant to fading, and it is also resistant to acids and alkali attacks. With all the acid rain and all the chemicals out there, other materials do deteriorate with time, and you can print on variety of glass substrates. You can print on coated glass, although not all coatings. We have to check with the coating manufacturer before printing it on each coating, and with the ink manufacturer as well. But it is definitely possible and done worldwide. You can also print on side 1, which is the outside side, so which is also great. There are certain applications where the temperature of the glass will rise for your ovens, toasters, grills, for your lighting applications. So, this kind of an ink is perfect for those applications and is widely used across industries. There are certain limitations for the ceramic frit as well. Metallic finishes, very shiny surfaces cannot be made. Inks are not essentially mixable as some other forms of ink. This is due to the glass frit itself. So, because there are actual particles of glass, you can understand that the glass particles will not fuse into each other. So, it's not that easy to mix these inks. They cannot be printed with normal printers and conventional techniques. It doesn't work on a CMYK pattern. That means you can't have just 4 base colors and have multiple colors come out of it. So, there are limitations with the inks. The colors are not as vivid as some of the organic inks. You may see certain lacquers where the reds really pop out or the oranges really pop out. It's lesser so, although the inks are improving every day and they are becoming more vivid as we go along. Some colors will have heavy metals, and because of that, certain colors will not be possible in certain countries where heavy metals are not allowed. Pinholes and opacity in the ceramic frit will not be the same as organic printing. This is an inherent problem with ceramic frit because the glass frit has to embed on the surface of the glass, and because of that you cannot have too much pigment going in. Opacity will be lighter, so certain applications it may be better to use organic lacquers, where internal applications we widely use lacquered glass for the same. There are a variety of applications that ceramic fritted glass is used for. Facades, it is used for letting less amount of heat in. It reduces the solar factor, adds a design factor to the glass. You can use it for wall cladding applications, various industrial applications. All your cars, all your windscreens normally have ceramic frit printing. The oven, toasters and grills that you use every day, the glass chimneys that you see, the glass hobs that you see. Spandrel panels in facades is an important application where it's being used more and more these days. And you can use it in n number of positions. Bathroom shower cubicles are becoming digitally printed these days, which really adds to the aesthetic appeal of the bathroom. So, yes, there are many applications where ceramic frit printing is used, and the use continues to grow. These are just a few examples. Skylight with ceramic frit will allow less heat and light to come in, although we can control the amount of light that's coming in. So, maybe even a 50% frit will allow enough light to come into the building, and still at the same time it will reflect off 30% or so of the light back. So, you can have many kind of fit patterns on skylight applications, and it is widely used in skylights. The other examples of wall cladding or other areas of the buildings are also shown over here. Digital designs can go all throughout the building, and that means that you can have multicolored prints, you can have you can add a design feature to the building. So, really the applications are endless. Now, let us move on to ink selection. So, ceramic frit is not just a homogeneous one kind of ink. There are many ink options available. Ceramic inks can be solvent based, or they can be water soluble or water based. Solvent based inks are traditionally what have been used since a long time, and water based inks are now becoming popular. Inks can be leaded, unleaded or heavy metal free as well. but certain colors like reds normally have cadmium and other toxic elements. So, it is difficult to achieve a good red without some heavy metals. So, a lot of work is going on that. And leaded inks, because we know lead is toxic, is banned in many countries, and fumes from the solvent based inks are generally harmful. So, you need to wear masks, you need to be careful how you handle it, you need to have certain precautions while using the print, and it is not that easy to get dispose of. Cleaning agents for cleaning the glass, for cleaning the frames is also harmful, and that is how water based and water soluble inks have become more popular. They are more environmental friendly as compared to solvent based inks, right. So, solvent and water based inks, I will dwell on this a little bit more. Solvent based inks are traditionally available, they are cheap, they are easy to use, they are faster to print. That means that you can print a lot more glasses with solvent based inks before you need to change the process or change the ink. But they generally carry harmful chemicals, and they have something called the VOCs, which is a volatile organic compounds which are toxic. The degree of toxicity will vary on the ink that you use. So, not all solvent based inks are the same. There would be certain which are lead free, there would be certain which are heavy metal free. But when we say heavy metal free, it's once again a percentage, and you still need to clean it with solvents, amyls. The emulsions are also toxic. So, the entire ink system itself is not very environmental friendly. So, here comes the water based inks, which are essentially made with a water base, and they have some co-solvents which may also have VOCs. So, it is not as if water based inks are completely without heavy metals, but again there is a range for these water based inks as well. But essentially water based inks can be cleaned with water. That means that it is much easier, much fewer chemicals are used to process it, and you get better inks with less heavy metal content as compared to solvent based inks. So, the best business practices across the world are moving to water based ink systems. They are harder to use. The adhesion levels between the ink and the glass is somewhat more difficult. The storage situation is a little bit more difficult. Some of the processes need to be more controlled, but they are improving every day and is widely used across the world. So, we talk about ink a little bit more, because in order to get the ceramic frit right, you need to get the ink right. So, because that is the material that you are printing with, and if the ink is not correct, then your results will not be good. So, let us understand how the ink is made a little bit. The premixed frit and pigment sometimes come in the powder form, and they can be then further mixed with a machine which is called the 3-roll mill. This is generally found with the ink manufacturer, but it is important for you to understand how this is done. So, with the 3-roll mill, the glass frit, the pigment and the medium get mixed well. You cannot do it with a normal stirring or a simple machine. The medium is the carrier for the glass frit and the pigment, and the ratio at which the pigment or the medium has to be added is recommended by the ink manufacturer, and it is not a constant. We have to constantly see how the glass is being printed and at what viscosity we are getting the ink. So, in order to check the viscosity, we have to use something called a Brooksfield viscometer or a Ford cup. These are essentially instruments to check the viscosity of the ink. So, the pigment and the glass frit will come in a particular viscosity, and you add the medium with it to increase or reduce the viscosity of the ink, and there are certain recommendations on what should be the viscosity. This would depend on what you are printing and which exact process is being followed. We will get into the details when we get to each process. So, for right now it is essential for us to understand that we have to control the viscosity, we have to know whether the ink is mixed well, we have to use clean utensils, we have to check all of these things, and before we start off to printing. Now, it is not as easy as mixing some other inks. Ceramic inks, like I explained, have glass frits. so they don't essentially merge into each other. You can mix them and get a certain colors, but when you print them, they may appear different from different angles. So, ceramic frit printing mixing is a complex issue. There are quite many claims which say, oh, we have ceramic inks which mix well, but the results have not been consistent and it's not the easiest thing to do. Even in the same ratios, when you mix the inks, the results may be different or may be viewed differently from different angles. The essential reason is that the glass frits don't merge with each other. At best, they get mixed well within each other. So, there will be color variations. I strongly recommend to have the original pigment from the ink manufacturer, especially in projects where the glass has to be a continuous glass facade. You can get pre-mixed pigments from the ink manufacturer. It does take a little bit of time, but that is the most consistent way to get a uniform color. If you do mix inks, make sure that you have a single lot for a single project, otherwise the colors is very difficult to repeat. So, you will not get the same uniformity that you will get with the pre-mixed.